The players can play RuneScape exactly how they want to.
How is the future of the road to restoration different to what we've actually gone through in the months since January?
We ended up accidentally injecting runes into the economy. Is that a spoiler?
Hey there, Scapers. Mod Anvil here, back again with Mod Ryan to take a look at the month that has been and what lies ahead. Mod Ryan, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much for asking, my dear friend. How are you doing?
I am excellent, truly excellent. I'm very happy to be here chatting with you again about everything that has been and, of course, everything that's coming up. So if we're starting with the has been, we ran the spring event in RuneScape. That's just come to a close right now. That was the Blooming Burrow. How have we done it differently?
Yeah, so within the Road to Restoration, we set out to commit to, making some changes to these events that we're running. Real big focus on making them like less grindy. And the Blooming Burrow was the first event we've ran since the start of Road to Restoration. We made a couple of changes. We reduced the price of some of the rewards, making it cheaper, easier to obtain. But equally, we increased the amount of tokens you could earn. But not only did we allow them to be obtainable in the hub this time around, we actually allowed you to earn them outside of the hub. It really lent into that idea that what we want from events, drop in, drop out, get that sort of like that meaningful little hit of fun, enjoyment, seasonal content, and then back to what you're doing.
Oh, nice. Do we have some data to sort of share with the community about what those changes look like?
Yeah, so with the change to allow players to earn the currency outside of the hub, about 70% of the currency obtained was done outside the hub, which is really interesting, really awesome as well to know. Like there is a good split. There's still a lot of players that were taking part in the hub itself, the social activity, enjoying it for what it was, but you had the option to just go out there, kill bosses, train skills, whatever it was that you wanted to do.
Following the release of that, we moved into the Aura Overhaul. The Aura Overhaul was, I think, one of our last sort of big fundamental reshakes of the game, wasn't it? How do you think that Aura Overhaul has impacted play patterns or achieved what it is that we set out to do with it?
Yeah, so the changes that we made, removing the entire Aura slot and porting over a number of those effects to the game, essentially. A lot of those effects became passive effects, either unlocked via the skill itself or via various rewards within skills. So there was rune crafting rewards from the RuneSpan shop, as an example. We set out with the removal of the auras to make it just easier to play the game on your own time, not having to worry about whether or not your aura is available. Equally, whether or not you have the aura in the first place, because of the cost of getting it was tied around the membership and the loyalty program. And with the removal, we've seen a whole range of change within gameplay. We've seen a whole lot more players engaging in combat activities for longer as well. We can put a lot of focus to here on the Vampirism and Penance auras as an example, with their move towards aspects. Within the combat space, there was a big focus, right, and a big conversation in the community as well around Penance and Vampirism. Seeing all the changes to the combat auras, or no longer auras with the removal, combat sessions alone have almost doubled in length across the board. So we're seeing more people engage in combat, which is honestly is really awesome to see, because it's allowing exactly, I know I repeat myself a lot, but it comes back to the idea that the players can play RuneScape exactly how they want to. They're not limited by, houred windows and being told they can or can't play at certain times. It's really the freedom to play the game how they want to, when they want to.
When it comes to aspects, what's your general feeling on them?
Great question. Ultimately, aspects is more like a sub term for what we've assigned to spells, right? In this example, there are 4 different, they happen to be spells right now. Magic spells and a necromancy spell for darkness that essentially cast a buff that we've called an aspect of X, whether it's evasion or sustain. The idea there is really just about limiting power for in terms of like good of the player, ultimately allowing meaningful choice and equally being able to apply a lot of power to these effects. We're really still open to feedback here, but we felt this was the right change to make for aspects. Making Vampirism and Penance an aspect in this case. With the combat modernization project earlier in the year as well, we applied the strength of combat auras directly to the styles themselves. There's a whole bunch of balancing going into consideration around what is appropriate for the players to be having it. Overall, a lot of the aura changes have led to much healthier play sessions, seen anecdotally a whole bunch of people talking about it, being able to play for, like we discussed, being able to play for short sessions, long sessions, no matter what. They feel like they're not bound to their auras.
How do we take player feedback on board? How do we bring it and make it part of the design choices that we make as we go through the development?
Yeah, so this could probably warrant a whole session in itself.
Good.
Player feedback is really important. Equally, you can imagine hundreds to thousands of different people have different opinions on what what they believe is right, and we, as those responsible, the caretakers for the game, the designers for the game, absorb all of that, take in all the feedback, take it on board, understand what people are asking for, also digging into understanding like what they're trying to say behind sometimes saying, please do this, and trying to understand what they want to get out of it. And it's our jobs to take all that feedback, figure out, using our understanding and expertise around like the game, the direction forward and where we want to take it, and combine that into what do we believe the right outcome is for the majority of players, taking into account the direction we want to take the game, which, as you can imagine, there will always be, we cannot please everyone with every change. So we're definitely listening, absolutely. But I think in the example of there may be some things that, someone specifically suggested that didn't happen. And because they didn't happen, didn't mean we weren't listening. Absolutely not. I'll go to say, like, anecdotally, I read absolutely every comment across every bit of social media. I am very much aware of everything that's going on. So always open to all the interpretations, all the ideas. And it's really awesome to see. But ultimately, yeah, we have to take it on board and make the final call on what we think is right based on all the information we have.
Performance improvements. We talked a bit about these in our previous video, and we released a couple of fixes for them shortly after. Those were pretty impactful, weren't they?
Yeah, so we made a couple of changes, notably to trees, the lodding, the level of detail that appears at distance from the camera. Equally, changes to the grass, and a real big focus on fixing what players were noting as like a stuttering issue, which has gone a really long way. Like, we've seen a whole bunch of positive sentiment from the community around changes here, like having a meaningful impact. And equally, from a data standpoint, we are seeing, noticeable FPS improvements in high populated areas, notably like Wendelwick at the moment, with the recent release of Havenheith. And the generally, like, the stuttering has massively reduced, if not gone away completely. That being said, though, performance is a massively important thing to us, and this is just the start. We're constantly monitoring it. We want to ensure that the playing experience is, top quality. So we're keeping on top of this. Let us know of any more issues, but equally from behind the scenes, we're tracking it all from a data standpoint and really trying to make sure that we're nailing the fixes where necessary.
RuneFest is back. When this video gets released, tickets will be on sale. So go get your tickets today. For me personally, I've never been to a RuneFest myself. What's your experience at RuneFest? And are you going to be a keynote speaker?
Yeah. RuneFest, I think it's absolutely amazing. Like, I couldn't, you're going to love it. I've been to a lot of them. I'm trying to think about how many I haven't been to. I probably missed, since I've worked at Jags, I've been to all but one, I think. And I've worked here for over 10 years now. It's an awesome experience for the players, and equally for us as staff to to get to meet the players, talk to those who love the experiences that we create every day, being able to get up on stage and talk about the big things that are coming up for the next year. Equally, be able to get on sort of the side stages and talk to more like some of the more focused topics. Whether it's the narrative of the game with the lore group, or the combat team focused on talking about combat, and then equally just getting out on the floor, meeting people one to one. You'll meet a lot of people. You get to have awesome conversations, talking about people's experiences, the content they've played that you've been a part of, putting a face to the name as well for them. It's an absolutely awesome day for both players and everyone, to be honest, who attends.
Fantastic. I look forward to it. So one of the final things we did in the month was really positively received. It was the GameJam updates. Now, these were actually, in a way, quite small changes, but they had actually really outsized effect. So, for example, the Quiet Worlds, smart hopping, and the boss lists. There's some great stuff in there, isn't there?
Yeah, GameJam is, honestly, it's always a sort of like a nice opportunity for the members of the team to sort of have a break away from the content they're working on and pick up some of the things that either they're passionate about, or they want to get involved with the community and pick up some of the key asks. And the update we put out showed some of this. There were some changes to Enrage system that players have been asking about for a long time, being able to just pick up and take on any of the Enrage bosses at whatever Enrage they like without the need to climb. Equally, just some which sound like more basic features but are like massively sought after. The rearrangement or the sorting of the PVM hub Wars Retreats portal selection, so you can sort it alphabetically versus release date order. But yeah, these are just game jam opportunities are really awesome, and it's the sort of things that like those sort of updates to players have a lot of meaning as well beyond, it's an ever evolving game. We love the sorts of, myself included as a player, love some of those smaller changes, quality of life that comes alongside the bigger beats that we release as part of the bigger roadmap.
Let's talk about that Rune pouch change that was so outsized. It actually necessitated a rollback, which I think is the first time we've done that in about 4 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time since we've done one.
First time for me, so to be part of that process and see how it all unfolded. What was your experience of that rollback?
Yeah, so the issue mentioned, awesome change made to the game to allow the rune pouch to store more quantity of runes, up to 2.14 billion. Unfortunately, there was a little bug, ever so little bug, that allowed certain scenarios for, some people, they may have felt fortunate in the moment to log in and find that they had billions or hundreds of millions to billions of runes in their pouch. Of course, quite a big issue, something that, we take very seriously around the, the economy of the game. So sometimes having to make a call like this, rolling the game back, it's not something we want to do because people losing out on time. But we believe, it's the best thing for the game to make sure that the game stays high integrity, exactly without any damaging sort of after effects. And kudos to the team on identifying it so quickly and getting it, making the decision, taking the game servers offline, rebooting them. Wasn't too long from start to finish. Players were straight back in, and happy today to also share some information on the impact it did have, and hopefully you can understand exactly why these decisions need to be made for the health of the game. So I will say, in total, there was 238 billion runes accidentally added to the game. So as you can imagine, quite a large amount, which napkin maths equated to about 52 trillion gold worth at market value. These things happen. Hopefully not often, right? But when they do, like I say, we want to make sure that we're taking the right action. It made sense to take the game down, roll it back, make sure the issue wasn't present, and then move forward. So yeah, now people have lovely rune pouch with the ability to store more runes in it with no issues.
So if we step away from that rune pouch incident in isolation and take a bigger look at rollback or the ideas of rollbacks in general, what are we doing to safeguard against or how we would initiate rollbacks in future?
Yeah, so any scenario like this, we always sort of have a retrospective on it, understand why it happened and what we can do to to mitigate against it happening again. I think it goes without saying, like, there are hundreds of bugs that happen during a development of any sort of project that we do spot, resolve, and sometimes certain bugs get out there into the live game. Some minor, trivial, not that impacting, and others catastrophic, like this example. So more specifically on the learnings behind the scenes, absolutely looking at, but equally, setting ourselves up for success in the future, really doubling down, ensuring these things don't happen. And, although the rollback window was fairly fast overall, putting ourselves in a position that if this was to ever happen again, it'd be even faster. Decisions made, rollback happened, game world down and back up, before you know it. So minimizing on players' lost time.
So that rounds off April. And I don't think it just rounds off April, because it rounds off a phase, I would say, in the road to restoration,
key milestone,
isn't it? So how is the future of the road to restoration different to what we've actually gone through in the months since January?
Yeah, so it's a key milestone because we're 4 months into the road to restoration. We've done a lot of I want to say, like, heavy hitting sort of changes, whereby for the future of the game, the health of the game, we believe that it's right to sort of make a number of changes which in essence, in some cases, have taken away from what players are used to, with auras, dailyscape as examples, even early game rebalance, a few sort of things we changed. But there's quite a few, like we're taking things away, changing what you're used to. Whereas going forward from here on out, like the next milestone, like as we will work beyond here, really is about like a lot of additive, positive adds, whether it's game content, with the addition of things like the avatar, construction, etc., coming up in the future. But equally, when we start looking ahead, further than this month, but into things like the rebalance updates, focusing on making the experience in those areas like mid-game better, which may, for the most part, include buffing areas or making areas less or more AFK in a positive light. When I say less AFK, I mean like if it makes more sense because we want to increase the XP rates or whatever it may be. It's really about working forward now. It's all about positive change, a lot of addition. So we've kind of gone over like the hurdles and sort of the turbulent area. And I just want to, thank the community for being here with us, giving us all the feedback, going through it with us, talking to us about it. It has been awesome to see, like anecdotally, the positive one behind the scenes as we use these videos to share some of the positive information that we see from a data standpoint. But even just seeing the player responses, as time goes on, you see, the post or people reaching out and saying like, oh, I didn't realize how much of an effect it was having on me, like the datascape pressures, or after playing with the aura change for a couple of days, it feels awesome not feeling like I need to stay logged in or I must log in at certain times to capitalize on the recharge of the aura. So it's all coming together, and so please, like as a community, share with us your thoughts on the last 4 months.
So let's look ahead at the month of May. And starting with the first week, we've got the combat visual declutter. I believe that's just gone live as of this posting of this video. And double XP will be launching tomorrow. Now, before we get into double XP, let's talk a little bit about XP gains and how that's actually changed recently in RuneScape. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so since the removal of Treasure Hunter, we actually observed a much more measured approach to XP gain across the player base. The data, shows that players that are obtaining over 1 million XP in a single day is consistent. So previously, it was a bit yo-yoing based on, Treasure Hunters promotions that were running, sort of bouncing up and down, as well as the events that were running throughout the game, such as the Christmas Hub, things like that. But that comes to an abrupt end when Treasure Hunter was removed. A much more consistent sort of XP gain per day, which is awesome because it means that like it's, less volatility, and equally when things like double XP are coming up, that is the opportunity for increased XP gains for players. But you have those windows throughout the year.
So if we then bring it back to that double XP event format, we've already shared the details with the community, but what is your own personal long-term vision of where we might want to end up with double XP?
Yeah, so as we mentioned last year prior to the Road to Restoration, we want to look at double XP as a whole. We've had a whole bunch of feedback on it. So we've already moved to a world where we're running less per year. So previously we were running 4 per year. The first one this year, as you mentioned, is tomorrow, which is almost 5 months into the year. So we're currently already like sort of dialed it back to about 2 this year. DXP is an awesome opportunity, to come in, plan for it, plan in advance when it's coming up, opportunity to get some of those like deeper grinds in, the ones you might have been holding off on, or just an opportunity to like socialize, get together with a whole bunch of other players, because it's an opportunity to come together and talk more about the XP gains and sort of work through it. We do see DXP having a lot of value in the game longer term, but equally we just want to keep monitoring it, understand from the players what they enjoy about it, what they don't enjoy about it. Is it too frequent? Still, those sorts of things. Ultimately, like we want the game, I've said this before, we want the game to be fun to play. We want people to work towards the goals they want to work towards, but we want them to feel, earned and equally valuable. So as mentioning with like the removal of Treasure Hunter, that helped a lot with that. Really what we want to do with DXP is find its place in this new era of RuneScape. And this is the first one we've run since the Road to Restoration. So it has a couple of changes, but we want to hear from players, see what they think as we continue to just sort of iterate it going forward and finding the best place for it.
And then we've got the Avatar beta, which has been quite the project. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
The Avatar has been a project that's been in development for so long. As it comes up and it's come up over the years. It's something we're so close to the finish line now. So this beta is an opportunity for players to get their hands on it, see what the changes are. Of course, there's going to be a number of issues in there. It's a beta, after all. It's not the final product, but it's a good first-hand experience to get people's thoughts and feelings, and let us know how they feel about stuff, and if there's any other issues that you haven't encountered so far.
All right, Dungeoneering Remaster. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so Dungeoneering has been the thread we put out when we asked about what remasters to do. Dungeoneering was by far, please remaster Dungeoneering. So when we got to announce, hey, we're remastering Dungeoneering, it was really, really awesome to see the response. Dungeoneering for me personally has always been I loved the skill when it was released, and over time it's sort of changed for better and for worse in places. And certain players, who've only, maybe got into RuneScape post that sort of golden era for Dungeoneering because of times have changed. Remastering has given us the opportunity to go back, tidy up some of the area elements that weren't kind of high friction and not in a good way. Equally being able to implement things like necromancy into is that a spoiler? No, that's okay. You can keep that in. Being able to implement necromancy into Dungeoneering as a combat style that's it's not new anymore, but newer to the game that wasn't there when Dungeoneering was released. The remaster, it's the first remaster for content that we've done in the Road to Restoration, and hopefully, we want to see what players think and feel about it. It's done a nice little spin on some of the rewards. Equally, the gameplay itself, making it more fun to engage with, and hopefully, generally as a positive experience for everyone, whether you're a Dungeoneering lover of the past or someone who is currently a Dungeoneering hater. Should be something for everyone.
Brilliant. We've then got graphical rendering improvements going live, which we talked about previously, but I know is one of your favorite topics to talk about as well.
Yeah, this is something really close to my heart. I've been super excited to see this one hit the game for a long time. I've been talking about it for a very long time internally, making sure that we do this. With our new materials and also the new tech we've added over the years, there have been a couple of these sort of rendering issues that we've been wanting to address. Things that players have picked up on, the shininess of assets, sort of this outline that has been appearing that makes it hard to wear newer sort of material cosmetics with older ones. Equally, the desaturation of certain assets in the environment and on character assets. Ultimately, there's a massively positive change. It makes everything look a lot more grounded in the world. There's even just small things, you see a bank chest that currently sort of kind of sticks out a little because of the metal isn't correctly rendering. In the changes, it looks exactly like a bank chest sitting in world, fully grounded. But equally, this is super important for our avatar update.
Yeah, tell me a bit more about that avatar launch, which is in the last week of May.
Yeah, absolutely. If all goes to plan with the beta, taking on all the feedback, plan is to release avatar at the end of the month.
Sweet. That's April and May in a nutshell. Thank you so much for joining us again, and do let us know what you thought of today's episode. Happy scaping. See you in Gillinor.